with the help of Audible and playing it at 1.5 times speed to help me out.
So you have like a chipmunk version, cool.
Actually, 1.5, like, studies have shown that 1.5 times speed is about the limit that the human brain can, like, process this kind of stuff and still internalize the story.
My partner, she listens to things she listens to like podcasts, like 1.25 or 1.15, I don't know. It's too fast for my southern brain. Like,
yeah,
my stress level just goes like up.
1.25 is my standard for most stuff. Like anytime I'm watching like a long form YouTube video, always 1.25. But I was playing it at 1.25 on this initially, and then I started doing the math of the length of the book versus how much time that would shave off. I'm like, I bet we can push this.
It is like, it's not a short book, it's like a hefty book.
Yeah.
Yeah.
The audio book was about 16 hours.
And I knocked it out in 2 days, but it was nothing else.
I have no doubt I could have read it faster than 16 hours if I had sat down and read it, but it was just a matter of like having dedicated time to sit and read rather than like be in the car or while I'm doing the dishes or stuff like that. Normally I don't do fiction on audiobooks. Normally I just do nonfiction on audiobooks.
I struggle with audiobooks. I just listened to like a romance kind of book on audiobook while I work, and that was pretty good. But I normally have trouble listening. I'll start getting too much into my work, and then I'll miss a whole chapter or something, or I'll get too much into my podcast or the audiobook.
Yeah. Typically, I usually try to just do it when I'm driving, which is not an insignificant amount of my time in the non-coronavirus world. So it really helps me like knock out books while I'm doing other stuff. But this time I was just like in between doing this, that, and the other thing, or like I'm taking a bath, I'll just have that play or something like that.
Yeah.
Josh, are you good?
Got a novella audiobook I'm looking forward to. 2.5 hours.
Oh, that's not bad.
Are we
like
streaming?
Oh yeah.
Yeah, we're live.
Oh, okay, cool. Yeah, it's really close to this sci-fi one called Binti. It's like part of a novella trilogy.
Hi, Marion.
Really,
How do you spell that?
Binti.
Okay, I'm gonna check that out. Like 2.5 hours isn't bad. That's like a really long podcast.
Yeah, I rented it from my library. I've been spending so much money on books last month, and I've been trying to use both library overdrive stuff.
I used to use Overdrive a lot. The Chesterfield County Library has like a warrant out for my arrest because of some overdue fines I haven't paid. But I do have an Audible subscription that's burning a hole in my pocket, so I got all different credits that I got to spend. So Josh, that was the cold open if you want to actually introduce something.
Sure. Hello, everyone. So, welcome back to Goblins and Growlers Book Club. Last month, we read Six of Crows by Lee Bardugo. Hello, Brecken. So, we are here to discuss our thoughts and opinions on what kind of book Six of Crows is, and then we're going to re-announce the winner for the voting on July's book, and then we've also we've made a decision on August's book, so we'll be announcing that as well. So I'm Josh Maltby. I'm one of the heads of Goblins and Growlers, and I really, really like high fantasy, and I've liked high fantasy most of my life. If we want to go around and introduce ourselves, maybe Lauren, if you'd like to go next.
Sure. I'm Lauren. I am
Lauren.
Oop.
Sorry.
Oh, no, it's fine. Oh. I'm
Somebody
Lauren.
looping.
I am not a goblins and growlers person, but I'm a friend, and I have a book Instagram at Feminist Reading List where I read sci-fi, fantasy, and romance with an emphasis on women's stories and queer stories. A lot of them. Brandon?
I guess I can go. Yeah, I'm Brandon, Goblin, sci-fi fantasy fan. Don't have as much time to read as I used to or would like to have, and this is trying to help force myself to read new stuff.
Erin, pretty much same situation, would like to be able to read more, and this is a great way to make me read more. And also, every time you post a new book review, Lauren, I'm just like, I should read that one too. So, this is like nice little achievable steps to actually reach that goal.
All right, so having introduced ourselves, last month's book in the top right corner there being Six of Crows, who actually finished the book this month? Show of hands. Yeah!
I finished it a couple of months ago, and I did reread it this time, so I'm going to try and be sharp still.
Well, I know you were popping in on discussions, so I imagine you were able to recollect some things based on discussions that were had in chat on Discord.
Yeah, I really enjoyed using the Discord to chat about the books and like experience it again for the first time as you guys got to like certain chapters.
Oh my gosh. There were points during the book where I was like, I need someone to talk to right now. Right now is what I need. Sharon, Brandon, how did you guys feel kind of getting through the book?
Sharon, go ahead.
Well, I liked that the different sections were divided up by different perspectives. But then by the time you would get to the end of one chunk, you'd be like, no, I need to read more about what is happening in this particular story, and then you would switch back to the one that you just felt that way, where you're like, no. So you kept doing time. You're like, no, go back to Matthias and Nina. And then yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, I normally don't like too much perspective switching. It's like one of my pet peeves in like fantasy novels, right? Where there's like a Game of Thrones thing where like it makes the narrative feel too scattered. But I think it works in this one.
Yeah.
I have the same kind of bugaboo about stories that way, and it was actually a problem for me because sometimes my attention span doesn't want to cooperate with what I want to do. So, like, I had pre-read some stuff, just sort of getting an idea of how the book was set up, so I knew that it did a lot of this perspective switching and sort of like introduced characters as vignettes almost in certain spots. And I just, like, that always causes a problem for me because I have such a hard time slogging through the beginning of the book to, like, get to the meat of, like, the rising action on a good day. But with this one, it's like, okay, all right, I'm invested in this character now. All right, start over. Okay, all right, okay, I'm invested in this character now. Start over. But it built up to something really good. It's just that's just a problem for like me and my attention span sort of overall.
Yeah, I think the switching perspectives was really helpful for those of us that do not have amazing attention spans, because it's like, now it's something else. Now it's something else. Now it's something else. I definitely, though, as far as like wanting to go back to specific character perspectives, like I could have lived the whole book in Jesper's head. That would have been fine by me. Um, I know it's better for having all of the extra perspectives, but every time I was on Jesper and then the chapter would end, I'd be like, come on.
And this is just maybe like a backseat editor too, but like I think this way when I go see movies and stuff too. But it's like with as much as the book used flashbacks to help fill in story, I would have loved it if it had started sort of in BBRs, like with the job, and then just sort of told flashbacks of how everything came together, sort of like an Ocean's 11 type of thing, where they're in the middle of the job, but then by the time they get to the end of it, they've explained how they did sort of everything and got to where they were.
Well, I personally thought it was very Ocean's 11-like, because usually the way Ocean's 11 starts out is they're like, all right, everybody's comfortable and happy where they're at. Oh, wait, no, they're not, because here's the conflict. And then they start pulling together.
I'm not saying like the story overall. I'm just saying like the storytelling mechanic that the Ocean series uses during like the heist, if that had been applied story-wide in this case, I think I would have been a lot more gripped with it and would have had a little less trouble like building my own sort of momentum through the narrative. And it's not really a criticism, because I enjoyed it just the same. It's just sort of an observation, like if I were given the job of like cutting up and sort of reconstructing this story, I would have looked in that kind of direction.
That's fair.
I kind of liked it as going from C to Z, where different chunks in between C and Z, you're like, now we're gonna go visit A, then now we're gonna go visit B. Because I found myself like looking forward to like going forward to hear more stories of stuff that had happened before they, got on the job, like more I knew past or Nina and Matthias or whatever, or Kaz's brother and that whole situation. So yeah, I could see a bunch of different ways they could like have it spread out or like where they could start, but I kind of liked the way that they did it, and the way that they did it this way, instead of like having to start with the beginning of the heist, then we would just be like, well, it is just like Ocean's 11.
I guess, and like I said, I'm not saying they did it badly. It's just sort of like, well, I've never published a novel before in my life. Would have done it differently. It's my responsibility.
Ellen? I thought it was, the structure was really integral to the storytelling, which I really like. I don't often think about the perspective structure of novels, but like I can't, like it was so necessary in the control of information, and in keeping that like really fast-paced like heist vibe. So to be constantly like switching perspectives, to not know what exactly is going on, but have like a wider view than maybe just one character. That was really, really well done. Though I agree, sometimes I was just like, I just want to know more about this character. I have a couple of questions written down, and the first one was the POV and structure question. So I think we're on the same page there, Josh. And then the second was, is there a character you like best or related to more, like it's an ensemble cast type thing? I think that's always a fun question.
Yeah, so before we get into that, I'll give everyone a minute to think about their favorite character. I want to go through some of the stuff that's been said in chat. Didros popped in. Didros is sometimes a regular on the Discord. I think this is the first time joining us on book club chat. Hello, Didros. And said, that is one of those things that I always hate in the moment, but really helps me want to keep coming back to finish the book. Kind of that more very like quick bouncing between chapters. Lost Limey pointed out that it probably helped that we only had 5 or so perspectives, as opposed to the 30 of something like Game of Thrones, where you then have to be like, wait, what was happening last time we were here? When I was talking about really wanting to hear more from Jesper, Lost Limey said that was him with the Wraith's perspective. And I've got to say, like, Inej was the thing that sold me on the book first. Like, reading that first Inej chapter, I was like, well, I'm in for the long haul. Marion said that the whole time she was reading, she kept thinking of Ocean's 11 and Leverage. Lost Limey pointed out that it is pretty much the traditional beats of a heist caper, to which Marion agreed. And if she had to choose one POV for the whole book, she would have wanted Inej. Breckid said that he liked that you got the characters' perspective chapters after they entered the story in a previous chapter, instead of doing what some stories do by making you wait to see how they're going to meet up. Marion pointed out that she really enjoyed the different POVs and pacing. Lost Limey made note of, aside from Wylan, Breckid, because of all the characters you get introduced, Wylan, you just get to continue wondering about what his deal is, how he works, why he works that way.
I was so mad I didn't notice that. I was so mad.
Which Breckid points out there was a story reason not to see into his head, which is true. There's actually, I think there's like 2 or 3 different plot beats that Wylan's holding captive inside his brain the whole time that you're doing the heist. And then finally, Marion says that she bets that we'll spend more time talking about Wylan soon, which I think is because Marion peeked forward to the next book already and noticed that chapter 2 is a Wylan POV chapter.
Well, I'm glad you liked it enough to. I'm glad you liked it enough to peek ahead to the second book.
Yeah, I know I for sure am going to read the second book. I haven't started yet, but I'm already ordered a copy because I'm like, I need to know what's happening.
Just not to derail the conversation, but I don't know if everybody's aware that later this year, probably Netflix will be releasing basically the Six of Crows prequel series, like an 8-episode series.
Really?
Yeah, because the author has like another series of books that's set in the same world, and it's called Shadow and Bone. And the way that this first season of the Netflix series is described is like it's going to be sort of a Six of Crows prequel, because they've got a cast list for I think most of the characters, the principal characters.
Ooh, that's exciting.
Yeah, I think I haven't read the other series in that world, but I think they have to do with the Grisha wars and stuff like that.
It's interesting. I'll definitely watch it.
I would sold on the world here. We'll read, we'll watch. Definitely.
Yeah, I don't know if it's going to get delayed because of the coronavirus, but they said that it was planned for a late 2020 launch. It's in post-production right now.
It did, when I was reading it, it felt very much like it would translate to the screen. Yeah. I think because we make so many like comparisons with the heist genre, which is 11, and like, it's pretty fast-paced. It's not as like, you get into each character's head, but you don't stay there too long. There's always some kind of action stuff going on, which I think makes for a good book to TV. Sorry, Sharon?
Oh, sorry. Game of Thrones and Ocean's 11 had a baby.
Yeah, like I saw it described as Ocean's 11 meets Game of Thrones, but like as I'm reading it too, I'm like, there's a fair bit of the A team mixed into this as well. Just because there's kind of a lot of chaos involved.
There is a lot of chaos
Is it an
involved.
A-team?
Yes, it's the A team.
I've never seen an episode.
Oh, well. I grew up in the mid-'80s, so there was a lot of Mr. T and George Peppard on my TV when I was growing up. I mean, they stole a tank in this book, so that's definitely some A-Team stuff right there.
Yeah.
It's very A-Team grade shenanigans, absolutely. Apparently, I was a little off base. Marion was just thinking that thinking that Wyland is an important part of the story, and thought we would talk tonight more about him, which I think is absolutely fair. Though she does admit that she is already reading the second book, but we'll keep that in her pocket for tonight. I was the twist involving Wyland took me so much by surprise, and I won't spoil it for anyone who has not yet finished. But it took me so much by surprise that I was like, wait, oh my god. And because I read basically everything from them starting to get out of the ice fortress all the way to the end of the book, all in a sitting, I still had it fresh in my mind, the boat trip back and what that was like, and kind of some of the character interactions on the way there, and I was like, oh my god. Oh my god. Ow! Did such a good job of foreshadowing it so that you had just enough clues without actually telling you outright what was going on.
Yeah, I had no idea. I knew there would be a twist at the end because it's a duology, so it's not just going to be happy ever after. But I didn't see that. I don't know. Did either of you?
I mean, I had theories that were all wrong. So I was like, what?
Yeah, no, I'll admit, sometimes when I get to reading, and or in this case, for part of listening, I just sort of get caught up in it, and I don't think too critically about what's passing before my eyes or through my ears. So I'm not always super attuned to that stuff. So if you ever hear me being like, well, I expected that, I'm probably lying.
Regarding knowing that there was going to be some kind of twist, so that we knew that not everything was going to be happy endings, Didros says, Book 2, we all hung out and everything was super chill. Marion
500 pages of hanging out.
Guys, everything was so relaxed and all of us were so happy all of the time. Marion points out that it is a book club and it's people's own fault if they didn't finish the book. And I get that, Marion. I'm just trying to be nice. And then states that it was an excellent twist and that she reread the previous chapter right away. I was so, it was a jaw-dropping moment for me because I was like, oh my god, that makes so much sense. But also, what? I know there was a couple of theories when we were reading as a group in Discord about why Wyland wasn't getting a POV. And there was some concerns that maybe he was a traitor, or maybe he was gonna die. And then when the twist finally comes out, it's like, ah!
Yeah, I like that it was unconventional. Because the traitor thing and the dramatic death thing, that's been done, but it's more expected. I thought the twist it's not something you think about very often, and then not really in a fantasy world, especially. So.
All of the twists that I was thinking, oh, well, maybe it'll be like this. It was none of those. So that was kind of cool.
Josh enjoyed everything so much, he just disappeared into the field of books. He's become one with the literature.
I ascended to Book of Anna. No, I had to close my office door because the cats were starting to be noisy. No, just the whole book is so exceptionally paced There's not a single moment where I was putting the book down and I was like, well, that's a good point for a break anyway. Like every time I put the book down, I was like, I've got to get back to this and figure out what else is going on here. I need to know. Gotta know.
Yeah. I read it, I think, in like a couple of days. And every moment I was like working and not reading the book, I was like, you like look at it on the side of your desk.
Maybe just like a 10-minute break, just a quick 10-minute.
Something that Craig or Lost Lyman mentioned a little earlier is about like, hey, yeah, it was a pretty like beat by beat sort of heist kind of thing. And in the notes that I had written down, I was like, the plot was really formulaic and tropey. If you like boil away all the literature of it and just break it down to that, it absolutely is. But like, it didn't get in the way of anything. Like, there was at no point where I'm like, this is not an inventive storytelling. Like, it was just a good story built on some really good bones. So it really doesn't matter that it was so tropey like that.
Yeah, I think the concepts and the execution are more than original enough to cover for the fact that like the concept, the core concept of the book has been done before. Like we've read heist stories before, but I think the way this was handled and the way the characters interact, quite frankly, one of my favorite things about the book is that 6 individuals enter and 3 ships leave. Like, so good. Makes me so happy.
Yeah, no. It does have some of those like very tropey, like it's a heist, it knows what it is, like that's what you're getting, but it doesn't, I thought, like well enough that I was never bored or like, oh, we're doing this, like it kept me engaged the whole time.
I think you sort of hit it on the head there. Like it knows what it is. It knows, it accepts, and it excels. Like you can have a hot dog and it's just a hot dog, but if the person making the hot dog, like just wants to make the best damn hot dog in the world and isn't trying to make it like artisanal or anything like that, it can be really good.
Yeah.
One of the things I thought while I was reading it, and then I went back and like afterward, I sort of like googled around on it to see what other people thought about it, look up some criticisms to see how I felt about it, and I saw this on an NPR review of it, and I was like, yeah, I was actually kind of thinking that at the time. It's like these people don't behave like adolescents. Like you said, this was like a YA novel.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, just like I'm reading this, I'm like, and then like later I was looking and like seeing the breakdown of everybody's age and everything. I was like, no, that doesn't fit. Add about 10 years and that'll fit a little better, I think.
I both agree and disagree. I think like some of the, when it comes to like impulsiveness and like the romance, talk about my feelings moments, it's like, wow, you're a teenager. But like, I think they've, I mean, like 2 of them are soldiers in a war, and the rest have like grown up on the streets. That it's really hard to compare them to like, our version of teenagers.
It is, but it shifted it a little far enough outside the frame of reference for a lot of readers, I think, that it might have been beneficial to have them slightly older.
I mean, I would argue from personal experience that kids that have had really rough upbringings tend to behave more like adults because it's a sort of coping mechanism and a sort of defense mechanism. Like there's a lot of like, well, you can't just trust anybody, and you gotta have backup plans, and you gotta know how to CYA, and et cetera, et cetera. And I think those aspects of these characters are the more like adult things that you're seeing, where you're ignoring some of the stuff like Jesper comes to town to go to college, wanders into a casino, and basically starts living there. Like, that's more 16 than most 16-year-olds I know. I think it is fair to say that Nina and Matthias, except for in regards to talking to each other, act a lot more adult than they really are. But I think that's pretty fair because, child soldiers, essentially, like raised to be combatants and in a very brutal kind of war. And when you think about the more adult behaviors that they had, a lot of it had to do with like honor and duty, and not a lot to do with like responsibility and behaving like a rational individual.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, those are all good points. Like I even wrote down on here, I was like, this will be an argument I get to refute that when I say it. And then I wrote, quote, different times, comma, different experiences. And that's totally fair. It's totally fair. It was just the thing that stuck out to me, like, especially more toward the beginning of the book, before, like, everything sort of, I guess, like, the world itself sort of, like, unrolled a little bit more, and you get sort of a bigger picture of everything. That was just something that struck me. But, like, it would have been like, at first, it was like watching Saved by the Bell and Zach Morris smoking a cigarette while he's walking through the high school or something. It just felt off.
I think Wyland serves as like a little bit of a contrast. So they're like roughly the same age, but like he's kind of there being like, hey guys, maybe we shouldn't steal, or like murder's bad.
He is the Screech in my analogy.
And like, I think he feels a lot more like a teenager than anybody else in the gang. And so I think, especially when you think of like how he reacts to stuff and then how the rest react, he's kind of like our example of maybe a more well-adjusted teenager. And that's really loosely.
He's the only teenager there that's from a stable home environment. So
yeah, a bad one, but like
yeah.
he has a dad, which is more than most of them.
Marion agrees that it's really hard to think of them like teens, but given their life experiences, it works. Lost Limey says that he was mentally adding 5 years to all stated ages. Brecken says they're adolescents about talking to each other for sure. Didros points out that he doesn't really question the fiction while reading. He doesn't typically read something and go, they're too young for that, or anything. Which I think is fair because we don't live in a world that has magic. So it's tough for us to say exactly what teenagers are like in the Grishaverse. Brecken says, otherwise, yeah, Kaz in particular had me thinking grown-up Artemis Fowl.
Exactly.
Yeah.
That is like exactly how I think of him.
I haven't read Artemis Fowl, but I kept thinking about George from the Song of the Lioness books, the Tamora Pierce.
Yeah.
Like the Court of the Rogue, all that stuff, how he kind of like ran the city. Like from the underbelly and stuff, but like Kaz was a lot more like ruthless than I think even George was.
I can get that. So George like is murdery.
We had a little bit of lag there, Lauren, if you want to try that again. No? We might have lost Lauren for a moment.
Oh well, I figured it would be me.
You're not the only one entitled to have iffy internet. Well, while we wait for Lauren to get back, Lost Limey said that Nina and Matthias definitely read as 20-somethings to him. And he still doesn't think that either will see the end of book 2. Marion said, what's that?
I was just going to say, I agree with sort of his read of how old they read. Not necessarily his conclusion, but...
Both of them did seem older to me than the others. But, Lauren, what were you saying?
Welcome back.
Oh, it's fine. Sorry, I think my internet connection freaked out there for a moment.
You were talking about Kaz versus George and how George seemed a little less murdery, and then right at that point you just froze completely and then disappeared.
I didn't say anything after that because everyone else was also frozen.
Oh no! So you knew something was wrong at that point.
The Artemis Fowl comparison is like, I've never read Artemis Fowl, but I am aware of it, so I was sort of had that in the back of my head. So I guess, like, given the reviews of the recent Disney Plus release of the Artemis Fowl movie that was delayed and then kicked out of theaters, and probably still would have been had the coronavirus not shut them down, Kaz is basically the opposite of the Artemis Fowl in the movies, which is to say he is a skilled criminal.
I don't want to derail it too much, but I did read the Artemis Fowl series, and I loved it as a kid. And it was the first book, I think, I read where the protagonist was, like, not a good guy. Like, he was solidly a criminal and solidly kidnapped people for profit, and only for profit. And he's, like, really detached and analytical, and I think I have a soft spot for those kinds of characters. So I blame Artemis.
Well, it's like it's just this is now the Artemis Fowl cast, but like an interview with Kenneth Branagh the other day. They were like, why did you characterize him so differently in the movie? He's like, I didn't think anybody would like him if we did it the way it was in the book.
He's really, like ruthless, and like he's like a maybe like 11, and just like out for blood.
Yeah, it's like he is some sort of opath, whether he's a sociopath.
I read, I think, 2 or 3 of the Artemis Fowl books growing up. I fell off pretty quickly because I was like, man, this guy's too evil for me to really get excited about reading him.
I'm here for it. I don't know.
But my...
Josh, Kenneth Branagh made that movie for you.
My kind of grip of Artemis Fowl was that he is basically young fantasy Sherlock Holmes, but only for himself. Where Sherlock Holmes is like, it's all in the name of bettering society. Artemis Fowl is like, it's all in the name of lining these pockets.
Yeah. I think it feeds on that, like, trope of the super smart, emotionally unavailable, sort of pull one over on everyone else, like, Sherlock Holmes type lead.
Yeah.
Which is always a guy.
Yeah. Well, I don't know. Nancy Drew.
One day they'll make an Irene Adler movie.
Didn't Nancy Drew manage to, like, really pull some, like, massive stunts on people in her series?
I've only read a couple of the original Nancy Drew, but she was a little bit more benevolent.
Yeah.
Gotcha.
Yeah.
I'm watching Kira on Netflix right now, and like there's Entrapta. I don't know if anybody's watching Kira, but Entrapta is like very science based, and she just like switches sides from like the good side to the bad side, because the bad side has all the tech, and they can give her a lab, and she can do more science. And she like interpersonal relationship stuff goes right over her head, and she's just like a hammer. It's
like female characters that have a lot of those traits, but I can't think of them.
I mean, I can think of like comic book female characters where that's more of their trait. Like there's Black Cat, there's Catwoman, the two cat flavored villainesses who are basically there to be like, well, hello, handsome superhero, and the superhero's like, me? And then they're like, yes, I've stolen your wallet and also your car. Vanish in smoke. But I don't see that much in literature.
Yeah.
Which I think we could definitely use more. I need to catch back up on chat because it is just like blowing up on this.
People have lots of skills about art and foul, I'm sure.
Marion says that on a big picture fantasy level, she's very happy that a book involving teens written by a woman wasn't marketed as YA.
Yeah.
Which I think is fair. Also, the Lee Bardugo is based on the picture alone. I think she's somewhere in her like mid to late 20s, and I think there's something to be said for Brandon's impression and some of the people in chat where the characters seem just a little bit too old. I think there is something to be said for when you're not yet like 30, 35, like in that general area, you're still thinking of your teen years with mostly good feelings. You're still a few years away from looking back and being like, oh God, oh no, what a knucklehead I was.
If I'm doing my math right and she's not super smart and didn't graduate college super young, she's like 40 or 41.
Oh, really? Well, she
yeah,
looks
it says she graduated Yale in spring of '97.
Well, either she's incredibly smart or she's very good looking. And you know what? More power to her. Either way.
Hadn't thought of that, but I think that's an interesting take that like maybe a younger author would take sort of teen stories maybe a little bit more, I don't want to say seriously, but
a little less casually.
Yeah.
Favorably, perhaps.
Yeah.
Lost Limey points out that Wylan is Kaz if Geordie lived, which I totally agree with. Totally agree with, based on the one chapter we get to see of that. And then there is some talk about making more time to read books, which is precisely what we're here for. And then, let's see. Lost Limey says, so we need more evil-ish women in literature, and I say yes. More evil-ish women.
For it.
more chaotic neutral women.
Yeah, not like full evil, just like in the neutral, like maybe you can convince them a little bit over into good.
Lady Skeletor or Lazy Code Commander, if they were women.
It was kind of like that last one. You're like, oh, you're a jerk, but then you're like, are you yourself?
Like, Kara, like, she fits the ultra analytical. She would probably kill you, but like, she'd have a pretty good reason for it. Like,
there would be logic behind the choice.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. Yeah, so we are getting these characters, and Lauren is helping us read them. Marion points out that Lee has a severe disability, and so that gives her a lot of that heaviness of perspective at a younger age, which is a great point, because she herself then had to grow up with things being less than ideal and being a little bit more cynical and self-protective, which I think is reflected in her characters very well.
I did not know that, and it makes me want to read up more on authors. I think that's really interesting.
She mentions it specifically in the blurb at the end of the book because she's talking about how she gave Kaz a permanent limp because she herself has a permanent limp and has to walk with a cane. But I think hers is because of isn't it because of like a bone necrosis?
Yeah.
Which is like, holy crap, I cannot imagine. And she's just out here living her best life, which is amazing. Breckett says that in the Discord discussion of this book beforehand, he was getting the general vibe that Kaz was actually the least popular character, which Lost Limey says he definitely was for me. Marion says, Kaz was a turnoff for me at the beginning of the book, absolutely. He grew on me once I understood more about his motivation. And Lost Limey says, he did grow on me once his backstory was teased out, but I still prefer Inej, Nina, and Matthias far more. I play a lot of rogues in D&D, and so from that aspect, I was like, oh, Kaz is absolutely the character I would play if Six of Crows were a video game or a board game.
I can tell you that all of the fan art thinks that Kaz is number one. I think, oh gosh, I don't even know. I think, I like Jesper and I like Wylan a lot, but my opinion is influenced by the second book, where you get a lot more of their stories and growth, so I'm not saying anymore. Sharon.
There's vibes, so many vibes, so, you know.
There's some vibes.
Yeah. Okay, cool.
I like, and then in Inej, like, oh my gosh, I think you get a lot of backstory for Kaz, but I felt like she was maybe the most complex character.
I don't know, her backstory always felt like it had a little bit more depth to it or something. I don't know, like you felt it more. Yeah, I did. And like for Kaz, I found myself liking him some chapters and then not liking him and then liking him and then not liking him. It wasn't like a steady like up or down situation. It was just kind of like
Well, because he would be like, oh, maybe I'm like a good person, and then he would just say the wrong thing, just like the worst in the moment.
I mean, I will say that is what it feels like to be a teenage boy. I don't think most teenage boys are quite that bad at interacting with people, but then, like, given his background, you sort of get it. I think if we're picking favorites, obviously Jesper and Inej were my favorite characters to see through the eyes of. I think my least favorite character, just because I always have trouble with this kind of character, was Matthias. Because lawful good is such a tough thing for me. Such a tough thing.
Yeah, I kind of agree. I thought he got a lot of good, like, I liked his story, but I thought his perspective, like, I liked his, like, growth and his, like, backstory and his relationship with Nina. I thought was all really good, but
oh yeah,
I wound up not liking him that much.
I just thought his perspective and like his little storyline was maybe just more predictable because he's like, oh, okay, he's the lawful good character, but like, yeah.
Yeah, definitely. That was one character where I was at the almost very beginning. It was like, this character arc is going to be this, and then it's going to be that, and then we're going to end up back over here, and it's comfortable, like a warm blanket.
And his relationship with Nina and like going into the history of that was a part that I kept like looking forward to because it's like, oh, I want to hear the nice story, and yeah, so
Yeah.
enjoy that part. And I think Nina made him more interesting by a lot. And I didn't really like Nina at first. I was kind of like, whatever. But I liked her more and more and more and more as the book went on.
Yeah, I feel like characters like him need some sort of catalyst to become interesting. Like they're not like all
in the book somewhere. I don't remember what that sentence is, but
it's like my problem with playing, like, or not playing because I don't, but like playing at a table with somebody who's really trying to be a paladin in D&D. It's like, well, I don't have to guess really what this person's next action is going to be if we do this. It's going to be something very righteous and very counter to what I want to do.
I did enjoy the resistance to the concept, though Matthias was probably the most brutish of the entire party. Lee, I think, did a really good job of resisting the, oh, well, he's a paladin and he's lawful good, and since they're going to be doing crimes around him all the time, he basically has to be a big knucklehead the whole time. Because it's a fairly common thing for, like, well, it's a criminal movie, but this character is definitely going to be against crime. And they're just, like, constantly pulling things over on that character. I'm not super fond of that trope, which I know I say...
It's either that trope, or it's the trope where the party has to give that, like the party or the storyteller has to give that character some secondary motivation, like revenge for being wronged, or to set right something else as a consequence of doing this.
Yeah. I appreciated that Lee made him more of a person than that. Like, he had his own motivations, he had his own code that he was trying to follow, and in the end of everything, it's the violation of that code by the people he thought were most likely to follow it that makes him realize his actual position in the world. Like, that's beautiful.
Yeah.
Let's see. Marion says, I just have an instinct...
It's a very Klingon Civil War story.
Marion says, I just have an instinctive turn-off to morally gray characters in modern fantasy because that's almost all that happens now. I miss heroes. And I think that's fair. There's a lot of... We're in a fairly cynical, sarcastic, ironic sort of time period. So I get missing heroes. Where are all of the Frodo Bagginses of the world who are just trying to be good guys, man? Brecken says, I generally preferred other characters' POV chapters as well, against, like, say, Kaz. Lost Limey says, I'm fine with morally gray. I'm a little over mopey, brooding characters, but they're inescapable in YA-ish fantasy. He loved Matthias' stuff, but he plays clerics as much as I play rogues, so religious fanaticism is his fantasy wheelhouse. Marion says, my favorite Kaz moment is, though he'd trusted her with his life countless times, it felt much more frightening to trust her with this shame. Which I believe was when his gloves come off, and she understands, like, she knows why he is so difficult when it comes to physical contact. And then Marion also says she liked the Nina bit early where Kaz was like, remember what I told you at Hellgate, Nina? And she says, it's hard to keep track of all your wisdom.
That was very good, yeah. She has a very nice little, like, shade line every now and again.
Nina and Inej both got to have moments where Kaz is like, I'm very smart and important. And they're like, maybe.
I liked their friendship because they were so different. It felt like it fleshed out both of their characters to have them both be friends with each other and like that there was genuine care. It helped me feel like they were more than like love interests.
Right. It's that concept of keeping your friends honest. Like, who can you trust to tell you when you're being too much, if not your closest friends? And then Breckett says, in terms of heist tropes and what he does in the story, he's more the inside man than the muscle, and I like that. That would be regarding Matthias.
That's a good movie.
I mean, I think the way Matthias starts out, you expect him to be the muscle, because it's like, oh, we're breaking him out of gladiator pits. Oh, he kind of knows some stuff about the inside of the structure, but that's only part of what they need him for. He's kind of insurance. To then have him be like, yeah, there's a secret passage over here. Yeah, we can get to this building over this bridge. Yeah, if you do this thing, then the alarms will go off and they'll be trapped in this place.
And I think that makes sense in a world where like magic is so powerful. Not that like physical strength doesn't matter, but that knowledge matters just as much.
I really liked all of the like maps and drawings.
Oh.
I love a book with a map.
Yes.
Layout, and I kept like as they were going through the ice court, I kept like flipping back, and I had to like look and see the dragon eating its tail on the circle. And I was very excited to see all of that.
Yeah, that's one of those details that escapes you until you're reading, or at least it did for me. Like, I didn't notice that at all in the map until I was reading, and it's like, oh, that's such a beautiful, subtle detail.
Mm-hmm. Look at these cute little, like, Celtic-style little dudes just hanging out. They're just so good.
I love a good fantasy map. And this book has two.
Mm-hmm.
So it's really delivering high fantasy.
Oh, yeah. For sure.
And I like all of the different little influences for all the different areas in the world. And I was getting, of course, getting very strong Amsterdam vibes from Ketterdam and Kirch in general. But then, like, also, like, they kept doing the thing where they would dress up as the characters from that, like, comedy troupe type play.
The Comédie Brute, I think?
Yeah. And that just sounded like Carnival in Venice, and like it was very Venetian and Amsterdam with the gown and the carnival type thing. And trying to assign different places to other areas, and that was just fun to think about.
I totally think I got major Venice vibes.
Mm-hmm.
It may just be me and the amount of Discworld that I've read, but anytime we start talking about a city that is like half run by its criminal organizations, I'm like, oh, Ankh-Morpork, of course. Where else? But I think that's
quite read enough of Discworld.
I mean, you and I can just reread Guards and then discuss it in the channel as a side book. Although I say that, I'm already planning on reading Crooked Kingdom as a side book, and then odds are good in August I'll be reading the second, like I'll be reading Harrowhark the Ninth as a side book. So like, so many side books.
Is from book club.
It's a good.
Right?
It's a good problem to have.
Have you seen the David Tennant Casanova version, or David Tennant version of Casanova?
What? No.
Okay, it's a BBC series, and a lot of it takes place in Venice, and that version of Venice reminded me a lot of Ketterdam. Like that's what I've never been to Venice. But like all of the capitalism and the, like, you can make it there, like, if you con enough people, and, like, all of the sex and, like, overindulgence and dirty streets and beautiful parties and stuff, really reminded me of that. I loved Ketterdam, like the idea of a really heavily merchant-driven and, like, capitalist high fantasy city. I thought it was really interesting. And
Public of Venice, merchant-based, Renaissance-esque,
yeah.
stuff going on there.
Sounds like I've got something else to watch too.
Yeah, and it's been more. It's old, like, it's not. But there's in the second book they spend more time in there, and you get a lot of the culture of Ketterdam. It was really cool. I like the world building a lot. But that's what I'll say about it.
Absolutely. You are having a little bit of the, like, freeze framing, but your audio still sounds good. So I don't know if we're losing you or not. If we all freeze suddenly, if we all freeze suddenly, you know what happened. Oh, you're back.
You're really back.
Let's see.
Yay.
So in chat, Marion laments that this is where the Kindle is a rough medium for reading from, because it's so hard to see maps the proper way. Lost Limey also got strong Morporkian vibes from Kirch and Ketterdam in particular. There's a little bit of discussion about what is the best Discworld novel, which I will leave to chat debating. And then Marion is saying that she loves David Tennant Casanova. Yes, yes, yes.
The deep cut. And I want to know what Discworld novel is best, because I've only read 2. I've only read Going Postal and Color of Magic. So I do have my yet unread Guards right here.
So part of the reason I suggested Guards when I did was because I think it's the best standalone Discworld novel without any understanding of any of the rest of how Ankh-Morpork works. I think Guards is a very, like, good open and close. But the debate is making money, men at arms, and Night Watch or Jingo. Although all of those are, like, top favorites and not necessarily as, like, this is where you should be starting.
I've heard Guards is, like, the best. But
I like Guards a lot. I do like Men at Arms as well, but I think Men at Arms is particularly good once you've got a grip on kind of Ankh-Morpork at large, which I think Guards does a better job of demonstrating. I don't know. Everybody's got their own opinions. That's part of the joy of book club. But I am going to take this opportunity to pivot us a little bit from talking about Six of Crows to what we're going to be reading next month, Nine Fox Gambit. So, as I understand it, Lauren, you are the only one at book club who has thus far read this book.
Actually, I suggested that blinded, bet on my to read list, and I threw it up not having read it.
Oh, fantastic. Okay. Well, then we will all be going in blind to check out Nine Fox Gambit. My understanding is that anyone who's already pre-ordered your copy through Alpha Comics and Games, those came in today. So they are at the store waiting for you to pick them up. I know I'm excited to get my hands on my copy. so that I can get right into it because I'm excited. Just conceptually, it sounded very good to me. For anyone that wasn't with us last month, Lauren, can you give us that quick synopsis again?
I will do my best. Okay, so
if you want to grab your copy first, that's okay.
Yeah, let me grab it.
Okay.
It's always nice to have a visual anyway.
Yeah.
Okay, so Nine Fox Gambit. It is a It takes place. So they are up. A commander in a space fleet is up against a impenetrable fortress, and in order to succeed, she has to seek the aid of a general that's never lost, but has gone mad and committed like all these war crimes, and she gets his personality and memories and experiences like implanted in her. So she has to navigate both this kind of impossible task, siege, as well as deciding whether he's aiding her or not. I think there's like a lot of space politics, a lot of space battles, and like abstract mathematics, world building. I this came on my radar because I read this kind of like weird think piece that talked about the advent of something called silk punk, which is sort of a like this really cool stuff coming from Asian authors that take fantasy and sci-fi and view it through an like Asian cultural perspective. And so I read a couple of other stories on that like recommended list, and they were really cool and interesting. It's nice to have like a non-Western perspective on sci-fi and fantasy. I found myself like more intrigued by the world building and a little bit more surprised. It's really cool.
I'm really excited. I think this is going to be really good. Marion was saying that if we didn't have anything else going on, she was hoping we would talk more about Six of Crows because she feels like there's so much we haven't talked about yet. I will point out that this is part of why we have the Discord, is for precisely this kind of expansive talk over longer periods of time. But I think we can touch on, at least fairly quickly, she brought up a paragraph of stuff that she was interested in exploring a little bit further. She would love to talk about how Inej decided to become a slaver hunter, and that was what gave her hope and purpose. Mm-hmm. And then Jesper and Wylan as an item. And then how the drug thing affects the world. Yurda Param.
Those are all very good topics. And I was thinking about that climb up the incinerator shaft, and like Inej kind of like not really knowing what she was doing, and then kind of like finding herself sort of and her purpose in that moment, and then like having some direction. And that was like a very nice, like clear moment that you can see happening for her. That was good. And then the end of the book happens, and you're like, ah!
I did definitely feel like Inej, for the first half of the book, is clearly feeling a little bit aimless. She's just kind of. I think we've all been there where you feel like you're stuck in a rut. You don't know what next thing you're reaching for, and so you're just kind of like, well, I guess I'll just keep doing what I'm doing, and that can be pretty dissatisfying. And so I can absolutely see how realizing that the thing that she can do is put an end to precisely what made her life difficult is something that really drives her and motivates her. And something I will point out that occurred to me kind of in the moment as she's talking about, or as she's narrating that her purpose is like it's giving her more motivation to keep climbing this really difficult wall. Her motivation becomes very much like Kaz's motivation, but with more selfless terms. Because Kaz's motivation is to bring Pekka down because of what Pekka did, to be like, I'm going to end you, and then that means that this will never happen again, and you will know my name as you fall, kind of thing. Where Inej is like, I also want no one else to go through the thing I did, but her motivation and aspiration, I think, is a lot more like universally driven, where Kaz's is like, I will taste sweet revenge.
Yeah, that's a very good way of looking at it. Versus a much more selfless sort of approach. It's not a personal revenge, but more of a that nobody else is going to have to go through what I had to go through if I make it my business to make sure that nobody else has to go through what I went through. Regardless of who's doing the bad thing, I will stop them from doing the bad thing.
Yeah, it seems a lot more mature, I think, than Kaz's, yeah. And serves as a pretty good contrast, I think. I think you nailed it, Josh. Yeah.
I think it's fair to say that girls on average tend to mentally mature faster than boys. So the fact that they're about the same age, I think that makes perfect sense. That her aspirational goal is a little more grown up and a little more selfless, because she as a person is a little more grown up and a little less selfish.
Yeah. I think Kaz's like trauma and background sort of, it's like an anchor, and it like he can't escape, and it really pulls him back as much as it like drives him forward, if that makes any sense at all. And I don't think Inej is quite that way. It doesn't seem like it clearly affects her, and she has like some moments of PTSD and like real struggle, but it doesn't seem like it is as much of a weight on her.
This is like traps in a tunnel sort of thing. And she's just sort of more aimlessly wandering until she finds her like direction.
Well, hers is a lot about like freedom. So it makes sense that her motivation feels a little more liberated, because for Kaz, I think you're absolutely spot on, Lauren, that it's like an anchor. It's like a point in time that he can't escape. Mm-hmm. And so he just keeps going back to it and picking at it until he just wants to end like everything about Pekka. Though the whole like him not killing Pekka in the prison, what?
Yeah, that feels, his whole thing with Pekka not like just killing him feels very feels a little contrived and like literary. That's the part where I was like, that's very much like a book and movie like trope. I'm gonna tear him down, but I'm not gonna kill him. And like,
And he
They're
actually
just gonna backstab. It's like the villain monologue. Like, they're just gonna backstab you when you turn your back. What are you doing?
he had to be very full of himself for in that moment when he's like, oh, Pekka might be here. Oh, if I let him out, Pekka might make it out. If Pekka makes it out, then maybe he'll get back to the city that we live in, and maybe I will too, maybe. And then maybe I'll kill him at a more convenient time. That was a little bit,
Yeah.
like, but like, what if you just die today, though, on your heist? Then, you know, your little revenge that you've been thinking about every other page in this book won't happen. Yeah.
I mean, I kind of get where Kaz is coming from. Like, it's not just satisfying to like now your reign of terror is over permanently. It's one of those where it's like I don't just want you to be done. I want you to feel the sort of despair I felt, and then I'll kill you.
I think it's sort of that, but I think so what if Kaz's hesitation to kill Pekka is because, like, one, that's the only thing that gives him meaning in life, and if he kills Pekka, he has to, like, heal and, like, move on, and so, like, the fact that he's still alive and Kaz is still, like, going out and seeking revenge. I mean, Jordy's like, death is final, and then Kaz will have to move on and grow up, and
If you find it,
that. Yeah.
Yeah, I think that's absolutely fair, because like there's definitely people talk about a lot in literature and media in general about how taking revenge in of itself, it sounds like it'll be really nice, but at the point that you've taken revenge, like, what's driving you then?
Mm.
So yeah, I think that's absolutely a fair assessment. Lost Limey points out both that Marion, first and foremost, agrees on selfless terms for, like, Inej versus Kaz's motivations, and then is like, right, why didn't he kill him just to save it for later? Which Lost Limey then points out that feels like a very, I'm saving this for the sequel.
Yeah.
Which I think we covered pretty well. Lost Limey says, Big Scott evil, just shoot him already, energy. And then Marion says, good point, Kaz didn't have a chance to be like, hey, remember that kid whose life you ruined? And then Lost Limey brings out one of the greatest quotes in cinema history, which is the day that M. Bison ruined your village, or came to your village and ruined your life, was the largest day of your entire existence. But for me, it was Tuesday. Which I think is absolutely where Pekka is at. And I think that drives Kaz nuts. Because he can't fathom how this guy can't remember all of the people who he slighted. It's like, well, he wouldn't be able to slight people like that if he remembered all of them. Come on. So the other thing that Marion had wanted to get a little bit deeper into is Jesper and Wylan. First and foremost, when I started seeing inklings of that, I was so excited. I was like, I thought there'd only be 2 ships on this trip. Oh, this is wonderful.
Yes, I am here for Jesper and Wylan.
I'm glad everybody got the ship.
And then Marion was wanting to also discuss the larger overall effects of Yurda Param on kind of the economy at large. And I think that's a fair point, because you think about when Van Eck is talking about bringing this this individual back because the council needs to control this and we're gonna take care of it quietly. He should have probably figured out that if the council really wanted to be dealing with this situation, they would have been like, yes, we'd like you to go in and make sure he dies. And also that all of his research is burned. And also that his lab explodes. Because if he can create from lead to gold, that's an economy ruiner. Thoughts, opinions?
I don't know, I mean, the thing with, like, alchemy-ish lead to gold stuff is always like, well, how much does it cost to turn lead to gold and, you know, the complications there. I'll just go back to basics and say I think it's really cool. I'm a little bit of a politics nerd, and like I work in like budget and finance. But anyway, I think it's really cool that like there was any thought paid to like the economy on a wide scale of a fantasy world, because it would absolutely exist, and you don't normally get that in a fantasy novel. And I just really appreciated that there were like stocks and an economy and like trying to get ahead of those kinds of things, because it was so much more satisfying than just like, it's a feudal system, don't ask questions, peasants work the fields, blah. Yeah, that was really interesting. And then both the economics and the ethics of Jurda Harem were,
I think they're good. Yeah, there's just so many directions that use of that drug could go in, like depending on like the Grisha like abilities. You know, it's like, yeah, lead into gold, but then also, you know, messing with the tides, or like pulling all of the blood out of your body, or like all of, like, if you got enough of anyone who was able to do those things, like it wouldn't just mess with the economy because they made a whole bunch of gold, it would also mess with all the things. So it's like too many directions that are possibilities for how that could seriously screw up that world.
it almost reminded me a little bit of like, I don't know, the race for the atomic bomb or something, or like some kind of like weapons race, because like ultimately it's not like a recreational drug, it's basically just they're looking for it to turn, you know, Grisha into weapons, and so that's like it struck me as having some parallels to that kind of scale.
Brandon, I feel like you haven't weighed in a minute. You got any thoughts on Yurda Param? Or have you not weighed in because... Oh, no, you're not frozen. Okay. I was worried for a second. Or is he frozen?
You must have summoned it, like right when you said it.
Brandon? You there? You with us?
Yeah.
Okay.
I am here, sort of.
Did you have any thoughts?
No, I've been having some, like, it's been my turn to get some on. I've been having some intermittent lag.
Oh no.
So I've just sort of been patiently biding my time until it cleared up.
Got it.
You can move on. Yeah.
Then I will real quick go through chat stuff regarding Jesper and Wylan Marion quotes fairly early in the book, she loved when Jesper is like, pull it together, kid. And Wyland goes, not a kid. Fine, you're an elder statesman. Do you know how to shoot? Wyland nods slowly and says, skeet. Jesper rolls his eyes.
I love their interactions. I was originally, when I was reading this, I was worried it was going to be, I don't know if you're familiar with the term, like, queer baiting, but, like, you know, where they, like, hint at it, but they never actually, like, you know, they just kind of, like, flirt a couple of times, like, and then people are like, oh, we're going to write some fan fiction about it because the authors won't actually make it canon, but,
The Sherlock TV series.
yes.
God, I was so
I love
mad.
that TV series, but they're so bad at that.
Ah!
And so I was worried that that's what this was going to be, but I was pleasantly surprised. So.
Also pleasantly surprised. Lost Limey says that he feels like Param might be too lethal to Grisha to have a long-term impact, because you could see it being a bubble that burns out quickly. Which I think is a fair point. Like, though it's incredibly powerful, it would have to be used sparingly, and unfortunately, you can't do a lot of, like, well, now to travel to the next country, this will be several days travel, and then, like, all of your Grisha are like, I'm gonna explode if I don't get more of this stuff right now. Although I guess, based on what we saw of the Shu regiment that came in, they might die even if they're getting semi-regular doses. Let's see. Lost Limey says he almost never reads for ships, but had big Nina Matthias energy for this one. Which, yes, I was like, y'all are gonna end up together. I don't know why you're even fighting it. There's no.
Oh, classic enemies to lovers. I'm here for it.
Such a good trope. Marion says, yeah, a drug that you're immediately addicted to is pretty high stakes. The opening chapter felt like, oh, look, we have a new heroine, and then she was dead.
The opening chapter definitely got me. I was like, okay, we've got Juice, we've got Anya, all right. Oh, no, we don't. They're gone.
Yeah, no, it got me too. I thought it set the tone well as, like, this is a world where there are consequences and people can die and bad things can happen.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. Lost Limey says that felt very traditional fantasy, having someone die in the teaser. I would almost argue that it feels like serialized television.
Ooh.
Something like Supernatural or Law and Order, where kind of that opening sequence, you're like, all right, what's the world? What's going on? Those people are dead. Oh, that's what's going on. Got it.
Another TV show reference. Further supporting my idea that it would adapt super well.
I think that's absolutely the case. I'm excited to see what they come up with, but we'll see how well they can do. Sometimes books don't translate so well just because of what the writers and everyone think it should be.
I think it was especially a danger for fantasy, unfortunately.
And darker fantasy at that.
Yeah.
A lot of the pulled punches take a lot of the emotional weight out of things. Marion says, yeah, I originally thought the one good guy option for Wyland's secret POV was being gay, and so she was glad when the just girls scene happened and the twist was so good. And then Marion and Lost Limey both say definitely Supernatural vibes. Lost Limey says, or X-Files, where the first face you see does not survive to the opening credits. I think things are winding down a little bit. So what we should do probably next is look at discussing. So I know normally we do the voting, so that we can all kind of like lay out a book and give that some consideration. But Lauren, I believe you were going to talk a little bit about what we're doing for August and why we're doing it.
Yes, definitely. So, I liked how voting worked last time. I thought that was really cool, especially like community participation. But we thought that it would be really valuable to highlight sort of Black voices in sci-fi and fantasy, in this case fantasy. And we looked at a couple different suggestions and thought that the 5th season by N.K. Jemisin would be a really good option for August. I've read the book, so I read it years ago, and I loved it. I think you guys will like it too. I have it on Kindle, so this is the 3rd in the season, in the series, but it's just to give a quick elevator pitch. It opens with the end of the world. It's set in a fantasy world with a lot of sort of geology-based magic, and it's written by a Black woman, and it follows the story of a Black woman through, flashbacks and flash forwards, and it's just super well written. N.K. Jemisin she was the first Black woman to win a Hugo, and then the first person in general to win a Hugo 3 years in a row, one for each book in the trilogy. I don't want to talk it up too much, but it's really good, and I think you guys would like it.
I mean, triple Hugo Award winning definitely seems like a series that I should be at least like looking at. Like, I'm excited to read it.
Yeah, I'm super excited. I just talked about it at D&D last night, so I'm like extra hyped. So yeah, I think it'll be really good.
Oh yeah, I'm really excited for that. I will spread the word to Alpha Comics and Games so that they can check and see if it's one of the ones they can get. We'll have that information on the Discord. If you're not already on the Discord, I don't know what you're waiting for, because it's been there the whole time. I will go ahead and post a invite into the chat, so that anybody who's not already in there, I think everybody who's been in chat who's been talking, I know is in Discord. So anybody who's watching who maybe just hasn't joined up yet can use that link to get in. We've got coming up for next month, we've got the 9 Fox Gambit. Like I said, those are already at Alpha if you've pre-ordered your copy. So we'll go and pick them up. And then for August, we will be reading the 5th season by N.K. Jemisin. Let's see. Marion was saying that for future, she's wondering how would the chat throw in book titles. Speaking of Hugo Award winners, she's interested in discussing Touch sometime in the future, which is not one that I'm familiar with. But
I have not read that either.
I would definitely be interested in at least checking it out. It is a book by Claire North and is a Marion suggestion. So since we've got July and August's books lined up, Marion, keep that in your pocket for the moment. And then when we do the chat next month in July, then we can look at September, maybe looking at reading Touch. I think everybody should bring a suggestion, and then we can put them all up. All the suggestions.
More choices make make it easier, right?
We'll probably do pre-voting in the Twitch chat before we put anything up on Facebook, because it's tough to be like, here's a poll for 20 things. Kind of do our pitch and then pick a few. So I think we've got things pretty well set. August will be the 5th season, so anyone who wants to get preemptive on it, you can start looking forward to that. Thank you all so much for coming on and being part of the book club discussion. I love this little get together every month. Both the 4 of us as well as everyone who joins in on chat. Chat was blowing up today, which I was loving, because it's always good to get all of that like extra input so that it gives us more points of view to discuss.
Yeah, if the folks on chat want to put their like scale of 5 stars reviews in the Discord, we can put that in our book club blog recap up on the Goblins and Growlers website. So tell us your feelings.
Sharon on Discord is that's a wrap with 2 P's. So if you want to tag her when you're putting your post up on the Entertainment Media channel, so that she can kind of compile them all together without having to go digging, that'd be really helpful. I have been Josh Maltby, one of the heads of Goblins and Growlers, an enthusiastic high fantasy reader. Lauren, where can we find more of your excellence if we wanted to?
If you want to, you can follow me on Instagram at Feminist Reading List. I post about all of my feelings about fantasy, sci-fi, and romance. And you can definitely hit up Goblin's Discord, because I've been sitting on some Six of Crows memes for far too long, and they will be in the chat.
For the meme recap.
Oh my god.
Book memes are the most obscure memes, and that makes them the best.
The Gideon the Ninth memes you shared last month were exquisite, so I'm particularly excited for Six of Crows memes.
Thank you.
Sharon, you wanna give a little bit about yourself, a little outro?
I like books, y'all. This is great. Let's do it again.
This time next month, right?
Yeah. We've got the date up on the website somewhere, I think, but I don't remember it off the top of my head. But it's around the same time.
I'll pull it up on my calendar. Well, Brandon, is there anything you'd like to say to our lovely chat before we take off?
I feel like I did change the date, so it's at least on a Tuesday.
It's Tuesday, July 14th.
Yeah, 7 p.m.
Yeah. Thank you all so much for coming out and being part of book club. We're really excited to be able to talk about more and more high fantasy and sci-fi, and in the case of Gideon the Ninth and apparently Nine Fox Gambit, high fantasy sci-fi. Sci-fantasy. And it's so great to be able to talk about everything with everybody. So thank you all for being a part of it. I will see everyone on Discord in the Entertainment Media channel, where Lauren is going to drop some of those spicy book memes on us. Take care, y'all.